Hi, I'm Chess Edwards, and this is Beyond the Noise, conversations at the heart of modern day living. On this podcast, my guests and I explore topics that are meant to elevate humanity's collective conscious conversation in a way that champions the best of the human spirit. The show is created for those who care not only about where we are headed as a worldwide community, but how purposefully and attentively we are making the journey. You can follow us at iTunes, where we would love it if you would leave a nice comment or rating. And as well, you can listen to all of our shows and even join in on the conversation with your comments at our website, beyondthenoisepodcast.com. And you can visit me at chessedwards.com, where you will find personal and leadership development tools, articles, videos, and free downloads. There you can also learn how you can work with me as your guide for powerful and joyful living and leading. Today's conversation is with Barry Mangione, author of No Easy Answers, a book of life-changing questions. Barry also has his own podcast of the same name, No Easy Answers, and is also a life coach, singer-songwriter, musician, and martial artist whose very full life has delivered him to some very deep and dark places of utter despair, and has also shown him the peaceful freedoms of true happiness. His book chronicles his journey from a struggling alcoholic suffering from depression, failed relationships, bankruptcy, and other personal pitfalls, to the new life he now enjoys, which is full of art, music, service, and promise. Today, Barry and I dive into an exploration of today's topic, proactive transformation. How do we proactively transform our lives instead of waiting until some part of our life blows up and we crash and burn before we finally pay attention to what's tearing our lives apart? How do we more actively choose what parts of ourselves and our lives we would like to transform rather than being dragged kicking and screaming into more grueling transformative experiences? Well, let's see. Let's dive into my conversation with Barry Mangione. So hello, Barry.
Hey, Chess.
Welcome, man.
How you doing, man? Thank you. Glad to be here.
Fantastic. I'm really glad to have you here. And I gotta say, I'm excited about having you be the first guest in this new format that I'm trying out for the show.
Well, yeah. Thank you for letting me be the inaugural guinea pig here, and I hope I can live up to the expectation.
Yeah. So if it turns out badly, I can just say it's your fault.
It's all me.
How are things out New York way?
Things are good. They're warming up out here. Getting in the high 80s into up around 90 lately. So summer is pretty much here.
Beautiful. Yeah, for us too. So everyone knows you're in New York. I'm in San Diego. Mm-hmm. So we're going to be looking at a subject today from our different perspectives and from different ends of the country. Mm-hmm. Beautiful. So you and I talked the other day, and we were hunting around and looking at what the topic might be for this afternoon that you and I can explore. And the way I presented it to you was, what's thrilling you these days? What's the kind of the edge of your imagination of what you're playing with and exploring and want to explore more of? And you brought up the idea that you already wrote your first book, No Easy Answers.
Right.
And it was about, really hitting rock bottom and hitting a place in your life that, many different places in your life that finally, you just really had to make transformations or die, basically, yeah?
Yeah, that's pretty much summed it up perfectly there.
So what we were coming to was, is it possible, what can be done in one's life so that maybe the transformations are a little bit smoother without having to have a part of your life absolutely ripped apart before the change takes effect. And you and I landed on this idea of proactive transformation.
Yeah, I love the sound of that. And some of the work that I do is coaching people and helping people through those life transformations, and so that ideally people don't have to go through what I went through, where I waited for things to happen to me rather than making things happen. So it was it was an idea for me to see, what can we do to create those inspirational moments for ourselves or reproduce those inspirational moments and set ourselves up for epiphanies rather than catastrophes.
I like that. I like that. Yeah, I think that would be a lot more desirable.
For me, I know for me, yes, it would certainly be.
Yeah. Now, for some people, they thrive on the drama, so they wait until there's the drama to have the epiphany.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah, I was one of those people for too long.
yeah, yeah. And I think that's why most people write any sort of a self-help or a guidance book, to share, to say, look, I've been down this path. You don't necessarily have to go down this same path in order to, come out with the outcomes and some of the transformations that are possible. But I think a lot of people will often read those and say, "Oh, great. Okay, if I'm ever in that position, or when it gets that bad for me, at least now I have a guide."
Right, right. Yeah, I like that you brought that up. It's when I wrote No Easy Answers, the goal was not to write the greatest self help book ever. It was my hope that it would be the right book for the right person at the right time, whoever that may be, whether it was one person or many people. That's great. Uh, but I thought, wouldn't it be great if we could take sort of that randomness out of it and see if there's ways to, I don't know, deconstruct and demystify these life-changing moments and find some commonalities from different stories that I've heard and compare them with mine, and then see if we could take that and help people create their own turnarounds. So what's your experience with, I know you do coaching. What's your
Yeah.
experience with people and making life changes and
Well, I love the fact that, when we talked about a week ago,
hmm
and that's one of the things I'm digging about this new format. You and I talk, we decide on a topic, and then we've got a week to kind of let it percolate.
right.
And so in that, there were a couple of things, and I guess what I would want to start out with is that, that really, for me, for the people I work with, for the teachers who have helped me along the way, what I've recognized is that without the practices of presence and awareness, then it's really hard for me to be paying attention to what's actually happening, and oftentimes at a subtle level, the things that are starting to try to get my attention in my life. And so through practices of stillness and awareness and presence, I can listen at a much deeper and more nuanced level. And I think that that's really one of the great values of those practices is we can see issues that are I could say are cropping up, but are probably have been present for a long time. I can see issues in their a little bit more in their infancy, and I don't have to wait for them to explode to get my attention. I can actually catch them a little bit earlier. And I was thinking about it and saying that, if just left to my unconsciousness, and I'm not doing any of these practices of self-knowing and listening to my life and to myself, really my growth is pretty haphazard at best. I want to bring some more consciousness to consciously choosing transformation. What do I want to move into next? Who do I want to be? And what might that look like? And what's getting in the way? And really having that examination. And so that I'm not just exploring when things go awry. I'm actually exploring on a daily basis into my life through meditation, through my exercise, through dynamic and courageous conversation with friends, which is another point we can talk about. But mostly for me, it's through my meditations. That's my consciousness or my practice of stillness where I can listen.
Mm. Yeah, I love that you brought that up because I like to put things into, I don't know, receivable nuggets, let's just say, for my for
Yeah.
my audience. So I was thinking about the common elements, and I thought of the ABCs of transformation. And looking back at myself and some of the guests that I've had on my podcasts, some of the former inmates I've spoken to as part of my interview series called Rising Hope, awareness is probably always one of the ABCs of transformation, but not just any awareness. And I think definitely having a practice daily, like you said, sets you up for more epiphanies than catastrophes. But more than that, what I found is it's not just an awareness that starts these life changing moments. It's awareness that happens simultaneously with acceptance. And what I mean by that is whether it was my bankruptcy or my depression or my divorce or any one of the litany or my alcoholism, the transformational moments came when there was a deep awareness of my problem and just how bad it was, and also simultaneously an acceptance of responsibility for taking control of that and taking control of my life. And it's that seems to be a common component, whether it was me or any people that I've interviewed who've had that kind of major breakthrough, life changing moment. It's awareness plus acceptance, and then it puts you in a state where, all right, I guess now I have to change.
Yeah.
So I would say we definitely want to continue with a practice such as meditation, such as exercise, such as feeding your body right, and also combine that with some kind of practice. And I talk about this in my book of honesty, um, because one of the things that brought me to having to accept things was being dishonest for so long. So, what are your thoughts on some kind of practice for honesty to go along with the awareness?
Well, I love that that phrase, the practices of honesty.
Yeah.
And it does take practice because, the denial and the sedation and all the ways that we avoid, have for many of us, most of us, have been so ingrained over a lifetime
Hmm.
that to feel safe in being honest, and Brene Brown's work on vulnerability is so prominent because vulnerability is really a scary thing until we learn to trust it within ourselves and within our communities. Um, so, that ability to accept, I think, is rooted very much in the ability to recognize that where we feel funk, you know,
Hmm.
we tend to want to. The message is, chase happiness, pursue happiness, and anything that comes up that feels antithetical to happiness should really be avoided as quickly as possible and rejected. And how can we explore something that we're pushing away? So to be able to allow ourselves to accept uh, the funk, the pain, the shame, the difficulty that we're feeling as a beautiful indicator. As like, oh, good. Here's a message from, and you can call it from whatever you want. I call it my higher self. Here's a message from my higher self that's saying, look, man, the only way I can get your attention is to have your current behaviors, your current way of being start to feel bad to you.
Hmm.
So don't
Hmm.
push away the sense that this feels out of sorts, it feels out of alignment. I'm trying to get your attention. It's like a child that if they're behaving badly, we need to, we try to get their attention to help them understand that that's probably not going to serve them well. And you know, and if they don't pay attention, if we don't pay attention to what's happening in our lives, the level of severity of discipline is going to get stronger and stronger
Hmm.
until maybe it does have to rip your life apart. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. I'm reminded of one book that made a huge difference for me that came, after the fact, was The Shadow Effect, which I don't know if you've read it. Deepak Chopra, Marianne Williamson, and Debbie Ford, just talking about not denying the shadow side of yourself,
Hmm.
uh, just accepting it as part of you, and in that, um, sort of removing the aspect of shame and guilt that come with it, and just looking at it as a part of you, but not something that you have to fight per se.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I'm reminded of is the Albus Dumbledore quote, where the time will come where we have to choose between what is right and what is easy.
Yes. Yes.
And I think that just, it's short, but it sums it up.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I love the fact that we can quote fictional characters rather than the writers who actually put the words in their mouth.
Right.
The writers always have to be thinking, wait a minute, I said that.
I think you enter into fiction writing knowing that ahead of time, or at
Yeah.
least you should.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. I'm going to be anonymous to my characters. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, well, that's the. I heard it put recently, and it really struck me that shame is kind of really the one of the epitomes of arrogance. Because if we come from a place of saying, "I feel so ashamed that I am experiencing this troubling behavior, this troubling addiction or behavior, a way of being in my life that's not serving me," and I feel shame that I have that. It's kind of like, well, at what point did you think you were immune to all that? Like, why should you be immune to the human condition?
Hmm.
And all of us are subject to it. So if we can just allow ourselves to recognize that, we are all subject to the human condition.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think when I was when I mentioned the ABCs, so what I found as another common element in the transformation was, so this, the awareness combined with the acceptance, and then the B would be a belief that wasn't there before. So say with me, let's just take the alcoholism for example. I came to an awareness of how bad it was, and acceptance that I was going to have to be the one to change it, and I had a belief that I could actually do it, where I didn't have that belief before. Now, at that time, how I came to that belief, yeah, I came maybe from hitting rock bottom. Uh, but I would like to think that we can work on uh, practices, like we said with awareness, that can also call that into being and have us be more prone to finding or creating those beliefs within ourselves. And my hunch would be that affirmations would be a big part of that. And what do you think about that?
I wrote a piece recently that I'm still kind of formulating. I haven't put it out there because I'm formulating the idea still.
Hmm.
Um, that I don't necessarily believe in myself
Mm,
because I know myself. I'm coming to know myself.
okay.
I find that my beliefs are subject to believing them one day and not believing them the next day. But I hear that that's really what I think that's what you're speaking to.
Hmm.
It's a knowing of self, a knowing of your strength and your possibility and your capability.
Hmm.
And did you find, Barry? I'm really curious about this because for me, one of the big parts of all of this, how do we proactively transform,
Hmm.
is to surround ourselves with a community
Mm,
of people who can help us hold the honesty and hold us in our honesty, in a way that is not trying to fix us, but just allowing us to be honest and courageous. And for most of us, that's a small handful of people who can really hold that space where we feel completely safe being honest. Did you find that?
oh, definitely. The night that I quit drinking, I called up one of my best friends and had him just come over to my apartment, take every bit of alcohol, every bit of liquor that I had in there away with him. And I put it out there to my closest friends and said, I'm quitting, and made myself accountable to those people. So I put the pressure on myself to say, all right, you're telling all these people who've been watching you struggle for so long and wanting to help you that you're finally going to step up and help yourself. And if you don't do it, uh, then you're what does that say about you? And that really put the onus on me. It lit the fire under me to get myself going.
Hmm. Hmm. Absolutely. And there's one of your community right there. You got your dog community.
Oh, there's Sonic. He protects us from things that are of no threat to us whatsoever.
Oh, wait, that's our ego's job.
Right. Well, he's my ego then.
Well,
He's a Shih Tzu. He's a very small dog, so
Mm.
everything threatens him, and he doesn't understand that because we're big, not everything threatens us.
So what I love about we can call it is our knowing our inner Shih Tzu, right?
Oh my God, yeah.
What I love about that is when, like us, when we feel small, everything is a threat. Everything feels like it's out to get us, and it's really hard to accept that because we're trying to make our smallness go away to get back to our wholeness. And so, in speaking about community, what a beautiful thing it is that we can find those in our lives that can hold us in their love while we feel small and while we feel it hard to love ourselves in our shadow. And it's like they're saying, look, until you can learn to love yourself, borrow my love for you. I'm going to keep showing you that you're lovable no matter what until you can really learn that for yourself. And that's one of the big parts of my community is they do that for me when I say, look, I have to say I feel embarrassed about that I don't have this figured out. And they're saying, no, of course you don't. That's why we're here. And that's why you're here for us. It's what we're all doing for each other.
Wow, that's fantastic. I just love how you turn that background noise situation into something profound.
Yeah. Our inner Shih Tzu.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's having the community there, having the accountability is huge because change doesn't happen really in a vacuum. And if you're going to change who you are on any level, that's also going to change any relationships that you have. So you have to involve at least a small community from the get-go when you're having a transformation.
Yeah, you and I have both learned, and I think most anyone who has really faced some of their darker sides and their challenges, that the idea of I've got this and I'll figure all this out, and as soon as I'm back to being nearer to perfection, then I'll come back out to my community. It really doesn't work.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I haven't found anyone who's been able to do it completely on their own yet.
No.
So
No. So it for me, I hear you speaking about the shadow work, and I really appreciate that because what I have found is that the shadow is what helps make us so dynamic and rich and complex, and the full dimensionality of our humanity has to include those parts of ourselves that we're working on, that are in shadow, that we struggle with.
yeah, and I think it's where I think you're going and where I'm heading with this is accepting that and looking in the mirror and taking responsibility for that shadow side of yourself. And in my book, I talk about something I call Taylor Swift syndrome, which I have two daughters. They'll be 20 and 17 next month, and for a time they were really big Taylor Swift fans. So I got a heavy dose of their music whenever we were in the car, and I just kept noticing that a lot of her songs. And hey, I'm picking on Taylor Swift, but this could be I don't, how many other artists out there. A lot of them were, this guy did me wrong, and this guy cheated on me, and this guy treated me bad, and this guy, it was always the other person's fault in the relationship. And I just kept waiting for her to come out with a song that said, maybe it's me. Because, and I'm sure anybody listening to this knows somebody like that in their life who they're always having relationship problems, and they're always coming up against the same thing. And you have to wonder, after so many different failed relationships, you have to look at your those and realize the common thread running through all your failed relationships is you.
Yeah.
So what, and not to say that you're the sole reason for that, but what can you do differently that you're not doing now in order to bring about a change? What can you choose to do?
So we're adding responsibility to the mix, because really
Yeah.
what we're looking at is, there are certain things, as we talk about proactive transformation,
Mm-hmm.
not
Mm-hmm.
waiting until life rips you apart to actually make the transformation.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about practices of presence and awareness. We're talking about acceptance,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so awareness with acceptance, and I love that you brought that into it. The witnessing with curiosity, not chasing the happiness and the bliss and saying I've always got to be happy, but recognizing that where we feel out of sorts is a wonderful indication of a place to explore without shame, without judgment, and with self-love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
I've even,
responsibility.
yeah, I would
Mm.
even say practice radical responsibility. Uh,
Mm.
if you read, oh gosh, Jack Canfield, The Success Principles, one of the first ones in the book is take 100% responsibility for your life. And if you do that, then you decrease the odds drastically of those catastrophes just falling on you and your world just caving in.
Yeah.
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 So, and what do you think about that? And what are your thoughts on say radical responsibility?
Well, that it's hard.
It's that's why not a lot of people do it.
Right? It's hard. And if I were to take radical responsibility for everything,
Hmm.
I risk. I risk.
Mm.
Um, I risk something. The things that I fear. What did Mark Twain say? I'm an old man now, and I've feared a lot of things in my life. Most of them weren't ever even true.
Yep. Yep.
um, that that I risk people not understanding. I risk people judging me. I risk abandonment. All of those things are probably more overblown in my own psyche than they actually happen in real life. And anyone who does, of course, judge and abandon, for me being radically responsible and owning and saying, this is where I am hurting, and this is where I am feeling broken. I probably don't want them in my life anyway. Um,
Yeah.
but I risk those things. But what do we risk more if we're not radically honest, right? We
Yeah.
risk our own sanity, and we risk our being able to live in our full potential.
Yeah. So true. So true.
Yeah.
I talked about in one of my interviews a guy named Ernest Henry. He was a prisoner. He was convicted for killing someone, and he did not accept responsibility for his crime. He talked about how he should have taken a plea deal, but he didn't. He just pleaded his case for not guilty and lost, even though it was not his intent to kill someone. That was what happened, and he thought because it wasn't his intent, because it was just a fight that ended in somebody dying, that he shouldn't have to go to prison for that. And the courts saw differently, so he was sentenced to 20 years to life. And he had this life-changing moment while in prison. His brother on the outside was killed, and it was this moment of awareness and acceptance for him, and brutal honesty and responsibility, where he at first had anger and wanted revenge on this person who had killed his brother. And then in that moment, he thought, oh my God, there's somebody out there right now, there's a family out there right now who feels exactly the same way about me.
Mm.
And he began to turn his life around. He devoted his time in prison to ending violence within the prison. He became part of a program that reduced the violence at Sing Sing Correctional Facility, which is probably known by anyone listening to the show. They reduced it drastically in a very short amount of time, and through hard work and rehabbing himself, he finally got out after was it 24 years? 24 years in prison.
Mm.
And but it was that moment where it was awareness, acceptance, honesty, responsibility, just bam, all came together in an instant.
Mm-hmm. And until then, he wasn't able really to move forward with his life.
No, exactly.
Exactly. And moved, it sounds to me like from what you're saying, Barry, it's a beautiful story, that he then was able to move forward more fully himself. Like he was able to bring his fullness to his life experience going ahead that said, yeah, I am, there's parts of me that are just so, beautiful and intact. And there are parts of me that have been less than, to say the least, less than desirable.
Yeah, yeah. He to this day just maintains an awareness of that, and is still active in the Rising Hope program,
Mm-hmm.
where he's helping people both in prison and getting out. And whenever he speaks, we had a prayer service recently. He always offers prayers for the people who were the victims of the
Mm.
crimes that we committed when he's with a group of other graduates and alumni of this program. And he says, "Hey, let's not forget, what we've done in the past. We're here doing good right now, but let's not
Mm-hmm.
completely ignore that other side of ourselves."
Yeah, as you're talking about that, Barry, that you're asked about the radical responsibility,
Mm-hmm.
and I was speaking about that we risk, people leaving us or abandoning us. Basically, I guess what I'm feeling is I risk a distancing of others, if I'm radically responsible and honest about, who I am, who I have been, and all the aspects of what is playing out in my life. And isn't it interesting? Do you find as well that oftentimes the very thing we're trying to avoid, so I want to avoid disconnection and people leaving me, is actually becomes more pronounced. The very thing I'm trying to avoid becomes more pronounced because if I'm not being really honest and responsible, I'm not showing up fully, and therefore my relationships don't have the depth of honesty and love and trust and vulnerability that I really want in relationships.
Yeah, agreed. There's nothing like adversity to show you who your real friends are,
Mm-hmm.
and who the strongest relationships in your life are.
Yeah.
You'll find out quickly who's going to be around and who's not. And you know, if I guess I should qualify that. If you're being, if you're coming from a place of honesty, yeah. If you're coming from a place of dishonesty and you're sneaking around and just doing some corrupt things like I was for a while, yeah, you're going to lose some people.
Mm-hmm.
And but if you're out there making a change, and it's a positive change, and you're being honest, and you're still offending some people, or they just don't, they're not able to define what you're doing, or they're not
Mm-hmm.
able to accept this new you, uh,
Mm-hmm.
then it may be time to move on from that relationship, and uh, maybe it wasn't what you thought it was,
Mm-hmm.
and at that point, it certainly isn't uh, going to take you anywhere.
Yeah. Well, far better to lose perhaps those people in our lives than to lose ourselves.
Oh yeah, I've said I would rather have just a very small circle of very good, honest, really supportive friends than a large group of fair weather friends.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Barry, right on, man. I appreciate this conversation a lot.
Yeah.
Every time I think, and we're talking about community, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is included finding people in our lives with whom we can have the courageous conversations. And I know for me in talking to you, Barry, that I'm going to hang up this call and I'm going to go into my day with more of a sense of honesty
Mm-hmm.
and courage and responsibility and awareness. And I
Oh,
really appreciate you helping me, come even deeper into that experience.
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I just on a closing note, it was before I met my wife, and I started entering into the dating world once again after my divorce, and I was sober for a while already. Uh, that was a good measure of who was going to be a good partner for me, because I would tell dates right away, "Hey, look, I filed for bankruptcy. Yeah, I was an alcoholic." I would just put it all out on the table, just honestly, sort of like George Costanza
Yeah.
in Seinfeld there,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and the ones who didn't turn and run,
Mm-hmm.
I knew, all right, this has potential, and I thank God I found the right one for me finally,
Mm.
and thank you for having me on the show. This has been a blast, and man, I really enjoy talking to you, and especially exploring this topic.
Well, I look forward to more conversations, Barry, and your book and your next book, and more episodes of your podcast. And I'm glad you're out there doing the work that you're doing, and thanks for sharing your honesty with all of us.
Thank you, Chess. Thank you so much, and thank you to everyone listening.
Yeah. All right, buddy. I'll talk to you soon. All right.
All right, thanks.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Be well. To learn more about Barry Mangione and his coaching practice, visit him online at barrymangione.com. His book, No Easy Answers, is available on Amazon. And his podcast, No Easy Answers, is available on iTunes and Stitcher Radio. To work with me to balance, strengthen, and integrate mind, body, and spirit for powerful and joyful living, or to attend a workshop or international retreat, visit chessedwards.com. You can listen to this episode again and all the Beyond the Noise conversations on iTunes and at our website, beyondthenoisepodcast.com. I'm Ches Edwards, and this is Beyond the Noise, conversations at the heart of modern-day living.